Journey IFC strives to create safe spaces to worship God. Know that you are welcome just as you are, regardless of religious background or lack thereof, skin color, political affiliation, sexuality, age, culture, or any other label you own or society throws on you. You are welcomed and celebrated here just as you are.
I found this poem and it just blew me away. So luckily I'm on the soul team and I got to say, we got to do this.
And that's why we got this series.
So I have read this poem over and over and over, and I just pray that in this one first reading that you will get something of value out of it. Many times today, I will cross over a threshold. I hope to catch a few of those times. I need to remember that my life is, in fact, a continuous series of thresholds. From one moment to the next, from one thought to the next, from one action to the next. Help me appreciate how awesome this is, how many are the chances to be fully alive, to be aware of the enormous dimension we live in. On the threshold, the entire past and the endless future rush to meet one another. They take hold of one another and laugh. They are so happy to discover themselves in the awareness of a human creature. I'm going to read that part again. On the threshold, the entire past and the endless future rush to meet one another. They take hold of each other and laugh. They are so happy to discover themselves in the awareness of a human creature. On the threshold, the present breaks all boundaries. It is a convergence, a fellowship with all time and space. We find you. We find you there, and we are found by you there. Help me cross into the present moment, into wonder, into your grace, that now place where we are all unfolding as your life, moment by moment. Let us live on the threshold as threshold. That's by Gunilla Norris.
I love that movie, and by coincidence, these are the glasses I picked for the today with these treble clefs on them. How fun is that? Mary Poppins, from the first time I ever saw this movie, Mary Poppins has always resonated with me. Not Oliver. Anytime you have a woman who tells you she's practically perfect in every way, you know she's got problems, right? Yeah. So not all of her, but I did resonate with who she was and how, the role she took in this movie, because I was an oil rat, moved every year. Every year I would reinvent myself. I would be Gail one year, I'd be Patricia the next year, I'd be Patty Gail the next year, I'd be whatever I wanted to be. I started over every year. But when I went into business, the ability to encounter change and relish it and meet it head on paid. And so I ended up being like a troubleshooter for my entire business career, just moved from one place to another, worked myself out of the job and never really worried about it because something else was coming down the pipe. It was wonderful. But when I came to Journey, it was not as Mary Poppins. I came to Journey as a journeyer, and you all recognized in me my gifting as a person, as pastor, and you encouraged me. You were there when I went to seminary. You ordained me when I got out. It was wonderful. And that, what you did, healed me in a very real way. Because I had felt like my gifts had been overlooked. You know, I was only valued for my business skills. You all valued me for me. I'm going to be 67 in a little bit over a week. And over the last several years, I've been divesting myself of responsibilities in other areas of my life. And I've been reaching for a new kind of joy that I see kind of glimmering on the horizon. Something different. I've been glimpsing a place where there is the absence of necessity, where I no longer need to be a load-bearing wall in an organization. And now I need to take that final step with Journey. I need to truly retire. I need to be like Bilbo at Rivendell. Like Bilbo, I was an unexpected leader here. I came to Journey as a regular journeyer, but my role shifted dramatically when Rick began to leave. And it became, at that point, my role to gather the resources together that we needed to be able to move forward and to kind of shepherd us through that process, through that conversation. And then my role shifted again when Jacob came in. And I was needed at that point just to connect you guys together, to reassure and encourage all of you, both sides, And you have bonded together in the way I knew you would. And now I feel like I'm on the threshold. This was a coincidence that this was this Sunday. But I feel like I'm on a threshold of a new season in my life where there is rest and space, and I can simply play. So at the end of March, I will retire and leave Journey. Not because I don't love you anymore, but because I need to. People ask me if will you come back to Journey or just retiring as our pastor? And I'm like, no, I need to I'm not constitutionally capable of being in a group of people and not jumping in with 4 feet. Can't do it. I've tried all my life. Used to go to college, sit on my hands so I wouldn't raise my hand to say anything. Never worked. So I need to go. And in every other transition like this in my life, I've always had a sense of some new challenge on the horizon, something coming down the pike. But this time is different. This time I don't think God has another organization in my future. I don't think there's another big project out there. I really feel like God is calling me to play. And in the end, if I've done this right, you guys will not miss a beat. You are a healthy family that loves each other well and that has been well loved by me. Just like Mary Poppins and the Banks family. And as you let me go, know that it has not been me carrying you. It is love that carries you.
It's like movie night.
Take these off because the reading's a little more solemn than popcorn face. Our reading comes from the creation story found in Genesis chapter 3. This is in the Garden of Eden. The serpent said to the woman, "Did God say you shall not eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, nor shall you touch it, or you shall die." But the serpent said to the woman, "You'll not die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit and ate. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made loincloths for themselves. They heard the sound of God walking in the garden at the time of the evening breeze, and the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of God among the trees of the garden. The man named his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all living, and God made garments of skins for the man and for his wife, and clothed them. Then God said, "See, the humans have become like one of us, knowing God, good and evil, and now they might reach out their hands and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." Therefore God sent them forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which they were taken. He drove out the humans, and at the east of the Garden of Eden he placed the cherubim and the sword flaming and turning to guard the way to the tree of life.
First off, I want to say, Gail, thank you. It is hard news to hear that you're leaving. We love you, and we're sad to see you go, and to see you fly away like Mary Poppins. You need to learn that trick. If you could do that on your way out, but thank you for what you've done. You've been vital to the life of Journey, especially the last 2 years in this transition that we've been through. It couldn't happen without your leadership. So thank you for the ways that you served this community. Even before you were a pastor here, you were serving this community, and your legacy will continue to serve this community. So thank you. We love you. So, as I said, for the next several weeks, we're going to be covering the theme of crossing thresholds. And like Gail said, coincidence that she was talking about this threshold as well. It's like God is in this somewhere. That's pretty cool. It's funny. We're in a church and God's involved. I don't get it. Right? Yeah. So seeing as we're in this new year, it's about time that we discuss how we can let go of this last year and prepare to step into whatever lies ahead. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go on this journey together. And each week we'll take one step at a time in this process of crossing the next threshold. And today we're going to focus on what do we leave behind when we begin this process. And our biblical story this week starts where it all began. At least that's what the Bible tells us. And this is in the Garden of Eden, that story we just read. And it's interesting, there's actually two creation narratives found in the book of Genesis, so it's a little confusing. The first one we have is the 7 days of creation, where all things are created and called good, and humans are created and we're called very good. It's nice. But then we get this second kind of mythological seeming tale of this ideal garden, where this gardener, this man who tills the ground, his name's Adam, or mud, or earth, whatever we want to call him. And he has a wife named Eve, which means life. And in this garden, things are perfect, right? Well, at least seemingly so. Adam and Eve can eat of any tree and do as they please, and they're naked. How fun is that? It sounds kind of like some hippie commune or something. But life seems to be simple and good for Adam and Eve, and there's a little bit of a problem. The one who created them, let's call him, I don't know, God, is very strict about some of the rules. While they can eat from all of the trees in the garden, there is one single tree that they cannot eat from. And that is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I'll be honest, with a cool name like that, it's hard to not be tempted by that kind of name of a tree. The tree of knowledge, to understand the difference between good and evil, how wonderful must that be? How discerning to eat of that fruit. And the story goes that one day there's this serpent who's talking to Eve, and the serpent convinces her to convince Adam that they should eat of the tree of knowledge. And they do, as we know. And the story suggests that this upsets their creator. And then these punishments are doled out. The serpent has to crawl on its belly for the rest of its life. The woman gets pain during childbirth, and the man has to work the ground. And then at that point, they're kicked out of the garden, leaving behind this perfect, ideal garden and world, now aware of their own nakedness, unsure of what lies ahead for both of them. I wonder what that journey out of the garden must have felt like. What is it like to leave behind perfection for some unknown circumstances? What is it like to know that you have disappointed your Creator? I must admit, I don't think this story really happened. I tend to be in the camp that suggests this story tells us more about who wrote it and less about the history of actual creation. Imagine a group of people who lived in the same exact world we find ourselves in today, struggling with the same things we struggle with. Why do bad things happen? And for them, the theology was pretty clear, right? Well, bad things happen because we probably screwed up along the way. And they probably looked at their history with these rose-colored glasses, not like our taco glasses or shark glasses we're wearing. But I think they looked back at their history with these rose-colored glasses and thought about how good the old days used to be. Probably remembering when you could say anything you wanted and do whatever you wanted and there were no consequences. Remember when the world was perfect. Remember the days before we are aware of the troubles all around us. Why can't we go back there? Why can't we return to Eden? Well, I suggest that maybe Eden didn't ever actually exist. Maybe these people were trying to grasp the unexplainable, and this tale of a garden was their best shot at knowing the unknowable. Maybe the idea of Eden existed in their minds and in their memories and in their hearts, even if that garden never had real roots here on earth. It's almost a chicken or the egg type of scenario. So, what came first, right? Were we perfect and then we messed things up and now we're broken? Or have we always been flawed humans, true to our God-given nature, and now we are just wrestling with this nature, trying to get back to this perfection that never existed? Perfection is an interesting word around here, as you may know. We don't really do that sort of thing here. At least our sign at the front says that. Imperfect, that's what we claim to be. And I remember one time, Margaret, she just stepped out of the room, but I'm going to talk about her. One time she said, and this was when I first got to Journey, she said that she was a recovering perfectionist, a phrase that has been borrowed from many journeyers before, and I think many of us relate to that. We are all recovering perfectionists in some way. For me, I have to admit, I've struggled with perfectionism my whole life. I've always been a high achiever. If I did something, I wanted to be good at it, the best, in fact. If I was in band, I wanted to be first chair. I wanted the best grades on all of the tests. I was number 2 in my high school class, so when I went to college, I made sure that I was number 1 in my college class. I wanted to be perfect. And I don't say this all as a badge of honor or to try to show off or impress you all, even though it probably is a little ego-serving there. Instead, I'm naming it as something that gets in my way of crossing this next threshold. It gets in my way of experiencing God. And this perfectionism followed me throughout school, and it still lingers to this day, like unwanted baggage. And I fear I've been chasing the Garden of Eden for too long. And the problem with that is that I do not think we were created for Eden in the first place. In the first creation narrative in Genesis, we are called very good from the start, but we're never called perfect. And if we can imagine Adam and Eve as real people, real embodied humans, it's hard to imagine a world in which knowing the difference between what is good and what is evil could be a bad thing. As if Adam and Eve's ignorance to the trials of humanity would lessen the effects of them. As if it were safer to guard these two and hide them in this little perfect garden and make them fear what knowledge could bring to light. That's no way to live. We are meant for much more than that. We are not created to be people of the garden. We are created instead to be co-creators with God, learning and growing along the way, adapting as situations and wisdom informs us. When I was a child, I thought like a child. We're not meant to remain children. At some point, we have to learn that life is hard, and bad things can happen, especially to those we love, and even to us sometimes. And it takes a more mature theology to recognize that we are not always to blame for the bad things that happen to us. We cannot always pin our problems on Adam or Eve or even the serpent.
Rats.
So as we imagine Adam and Eve crossing that threshold from Eden to our world as we know it, what is it that you think they had to leave behind? And what do you think you need to leave behind? For me, I know I am continually working on leaving behind perfectionism, reminding myself that we were not created to stay in that garden. For you, you may need to leave behind old theology that no longer fits, or harmful relationships, or jobs, past experiences. And it may be the thing that you cling the tightest to, like the Play-Doh that Vicki talked about yesterday. The thing that you cling onto is the thing that you need to release the most, so that you can step through this next threshold. As we walk this journey together for the next few weeks, I invite all of us to examine what is holding us back, and what is keeping us on this side of our next threshold. And I encourage all of us to leave behind that which keeps us from living into who we are created to be. Maybe the Garden of Eden narrative is a great example for us to follow as we learn to make hard decisions and leave behind what once felt perfect and safe and whole. The things that used to serve us well may no longer serve their same purposes. Maybe it is time for us to grow and step faithfully across that garden, past that gate, into whatever life has thrown at us next. But remember, we never walk alone. Adam and Eve had one another, and maybe the serpent came along with them, I'm not sure. But we have this community right here. And I can promise I have seen these people here walk beside one another through some of the highest highs and even recently through some of the lowest lows. We were not created to stay in that garden. So where shall we go next? And what can we leave behind along the way? Amen.
Sometimes it's just hard to give a blessing. You know, one of the results of moving forward is there's always a behind. So they're kind of interdependent. But know this, that no matter what you go through on a daily basis, there's always going to be something behind you. And sometimes that's what you need to move forward. So in leaving behind, it gives you the power to move forward. But remember this, that when all is said and done, you fought life through. The dream is good and the dream is true. And there is eternal joy and happiness ahead, no matter what's behind. Go in peace. Amen.
Amen.